Good afternoon. Welcome all to Smart Trucking Live. Glad you could all join us today. James Cheeks is here from Beckley, West Virginia. Camaro LT1 is here. Fred Besmer is here, cruising through St. Louis on his way home. Captain Nice Guy, sounds like he's about an hour behind him. Glad you guys could join us today. Shannon's here from Wyoming. I hope the weather's cleared up there, Shannon, a little bit. You know, I haven't checked the Wyoming forecast lately here since that last blast of snow. I hope it's cleared up a little anyway. Glad you could join us, Shannon. We had Andrew Howe is here. Cuban 960 is here. Massimo Foreste is here. Scranton Shaker is here. Deandra Cook is here. Silas is here. And there's SoCal Sandman. Thank you, sir. Glad you could be here and join us as well. Riley Komendek is here. Good afternoon from Iowa, he says. How are we doing? We're doing good, Riley. We're doing good. I hope you are the same. Paul Michaels here. Top Panthers here from Elliott, UK in the United Kingdom. Thank you, sir, for joining us, Top Panther. Glad you're all here. I had some interesting thoughts today before we get rolling. The topic today is what would you be doing in life had you not become a truck driver? And then we had a poll up, Kathy had a poll up saying, any regrets on your choice of choosing trucking as a career? 56% of you said no, 43% of you said yes. So the majority is happy with their trucking career choice. But before we get rolling into the topic today, I'd like to say first off that any rumors that you hear that the ATA driver companies are setting up recruiting booths at the southern border is absolutely not true. I know that it would be advantageous to them to recruit brand new guys just coming across the border as truck driver, but there's no truth to that rumor at all. Those booths don't open until next month, so anything you hear like that, just ignore it. I also was watching YouTube earlier today, and I noticed a couple of things. I noticed first off that Swift has their own YouTube channel, which I didn't know that. And they were saying they paid for a news broadcast, and they put it up on their YouTube channel. The first-year driver could make $60,000 a year, which I don't think I'd be bragging about, but considering GP Transco pays $80,000 to $95,000 a year first year, but whatever. So anyway, they have their own YouTube channel. Swift has their own YouTube channel. And then I was cruising down a little farther, and one of the truck driver YouTube guys had run out of fuel and made a YouTube video about it. And in 19 hours, he had 52,000 views because he ran out of fuel. And I thought, well, it's kind of strange that A, he would run out of fuel. It's never happened to me. But B, he would post that and he'd get 52,000 views in 19 hours. And I got thinking, Swift trucks run out of fuel every day. It's just part of their routine. So if they posted that on their YouTube channel, think of the views those guys could get, because it happens to those guys every day. Just trying to help out Swift. Hope you can learn from that and take something out of it. Anyway, I should probably concentrate on what the topic is today. And I'd like to know, if you hadn't chosen truck driving as a living, what would you have chosen? And James Cheeks was the first one in there with that. And he said he went from a federal correctional officer to being a truck driver and not one regret in that decision. And interesting career, and I can certainly believe that he would have no regrets about that. I would have never thought even of entertaining that as a career. But Zach McNeil said, I would still be in the culinary field. I left there because there's no money, either low wages and a lot of hours, or high rate and no hours. Interesting, but so Zach decided that being a chef or in the culinary industry wasn't for him. Maximo says, I've got a goal of becoming an airline pilot. I'm currently in university, and if pilot doesn't work out, then becoming a truck driver is my backup plan. Wow, that's interesting. Interesting career choice or potential career choice. 11551 Snazar says, NASCAR. There at my glasses. I got to get new glasses. Says he would have been a train engineer. And I think there are a lot of guys around here where I live that do that. And that's pretty good money. It's not a bad job. They've got pensions and everything, so not a bad career choice either. And you're still kind of driving something. It's harder to go off the road apparently with one of those, but when you do, and they had one go off the road or off the tracks here last week where I live, quite a mess. Icy Prophet says, always wanted to be a game warden in a federal fish and game reserve as an officer. Interesting. I never even thought of that, but that would be a job I would have enjoyed too. I'm kind of an outdoor guy. I like that kind of stuff. So, yeah, for the federal government. So work, Yellowstone Park or something like that. That would have been neat. That wouldn't have been a bad way to have a career. I bet you those days would go by quickly. I chose trucking partly because you can live anywhere and drive a truck for a living. And I was dead set on living in this little northern Ontario town where we live. I really liked it here. I didn't want to move, and there wasn't a whole lot of job opportunity here, but there was trucking here because every place needs trucking and truck drivers and the goods that they haul. So that was why I chose it, and it worked out very well for me. Matthew Pesco. I left truck driving for 15 years. I worked several other industries during that time. One job that I really liked was selling funeral plans door to door. No kidding, Matthew. They don't even do that here. That's interesting. Kyle Gentile says, I was going to be a structural and chemical engineer for a graphene company in Canada. Really? Wow, that is interesting stuff. I don't even know, for a graphene company.
They produce giraffes.
Graphene, not giraffes.
No, I said they produce giraffes.
Daniel Meredith says, I wanted to be a what? A ball python breeder or documentarist or herpetology, someone who studies reptiles and amphibians. Holy smokes, Daniel. I don't think I would have wanted to go into that. I'm not a big fan of reptiles, especially snakes. Marcus King, for years worked in a warehouse and driving on a forklift for Nissan Motor Parts. Now I live my dream, meaning trucking. And I did that before trucking, before I had a license. I drove a fork truck in a warehouse when I was like 15 years old. I like that all right. I'd rather be raising beef cattle and crop and have a crop farm. That's Scott Kuhn. Yeah, I've my understanding is that that's a pretty tough living, but for people that love that kind of thing, you just can't beat it. And some people just love that. So, JP, I was too young and dumb to know what I would have done. I had kids too young and needed the money. Well, there's lots of guys and gals that find themselves in that situation. So, hopefully you haven't regretted it. I hope you've enjoyed driving as a career. Certainly with driving, you could always get a job, especially these days, but you could always find a driving job. When everybody else was laying off, trucking was still around. Robert Gray, I swear I would never be a truck driver, but here I am driving one today, so you never know. All the best to you and your family, Dave. Thank you, Robert. I appreciate that. It's funny how life works out sometimes, and sometimes your chosen career, something goes south on it or something goes left, and you end up driving. So, but there are lots of worse jobs. Ever heard of graphene ceramic coating? No, SoCal, I don't believe I have. No, I haven't heard of that. Is that just basically what it sounds like? Is it like powder coating, kind of? The same type of thing as powder coating? Well, it got me wondering now.
Okay, I'm gonna run this and then you're gonna read.
I wouldn't. That's not
Jay Holzer says, I was going to be a DOT officer in Michigan. Some of the truck drivers hate. I became a truck driver, and while I waited for enrollment, turns out I make a lot more money driving a truck. That's interesting you say that. I actually got chatting with a DOT up here in Canada, a few years back ago it was now, and I was surprised that they weren't better paid. He wasn't particularly well paid, and he was thinking about leaving too for that same reason. Ram Gant, I might get a lot of flack for saying this, but getting a CDL is kind of my backup plan as I intend to pursue aviation first. Not at all. There's no flack in that. I've got a friend that has a pilot's license, and I've been up with him a few times, and I decided that was above my skill set to try to fly a plane, but a lot of guys aren't frightened by that.
Pinoid, thank you very much for the $2, my friend. Short order line cooking is what he wish he could do today, but I don't think the money's in it. Yeah, I think the culinary arts, if I had to pick an alternative one, that would definitely be one that I would get into as well. But with competition being so high and then the wages not paying what they probably should, I can't imagine it'd be the easiest.
It's here in Saskatchewan, and I thought about it'd be a bit easier than operating a school bus. Driving the truck would be easier than operating a school bus. I can tell you one thing, Big Ryan. I was never attracted to bus driving because of the responsibility. I didn't mind worst case scenario if I flipped a truck over in bad weather and wrecked the freight, but I would never have wanted to do that to a bus full of people. So I never entertained that as a living. Jay Holzer, I haul dry bulk propane across Michigan now. I make twice as much as a Michigan DOT enforcement officer. Yep, I bet you do. Deandra Cook, from building trucks to driving trucks is the way life goes, I guess. Yes, for a lot of people. And I know a lot of truck mechanics that became truck drivers in later life. And God, I hate to say this, but one of the reasons was their bodies started to give out from working on cement floors for years, and their knees, they were having trouble with their knees, and they went to driving. Kelly Patterson, I think being a pilot would be interesting, but I have issues with heights. Kelly Patterson says that, and I kind of admit I might have a little bit too. Like I'm not afraid of standing on the roof of a house, but when I look down 3,000 feet, that seems awfully high to me. So it wasn't anything I was interested in, but I know a fella that maintains both a truck and a pilot's license, and up until recently actually. But and he was really good at both, but he drove a truck for a living. So I hope for the most part you guys are still happy with the trucking job. I know I enjoyed it my entire life. SoCal Sandman says every flight is a test, every crash is a lesson. Jeez, I remember coming in that little plane of my buddies, and there was a crosswind, and he handled it just fine. But at least with the truck, it's tracking relatively straight unless you're on slippery ground or slippery road. This little plane was just all over the place trying to touch down, and then when it touched down, it wasn't dead straight. So obviously takes a lot of skill to be a pilot. I think more skill than I would have had. So never something I entertained anyway. What about you, Shannon? What would you have done if you hadn't been a truck driver? I'd be curious to know what a boy from Wyoming would have done. Ranching is pretty popular out there.
We missed Roger Penske's. Did you read Rogers?
No, I missed Rogers. I didn't even catch.
I'll tell you what it is.
Okay.
Because I can't find it. He was going to be a Playboy millionaire.
Oh, it started already. And you know what, Roger? Just knowing you the way that I do, I think you would have made an excellent Playboy millionaire. That was Roger Penske's dream career. I guess he's not quite there yet, but you know,
How do you know?
I bet you. Well, yeah, I guess I thought maybe he's hauling sea containers through the day, but at night he lives in the Playboy mansion. I suppose. Anyway, I was trying to find out what Shannon would be doing, but I don't know, Shannon. Would you have been a Playboy millionaire? I think that would have been beyond my skill set. Thunderstorm 87 says, "How about American Truck Simulator?" Yeah, Jeff, and big Italian name, on YouTube has a great setup. Yes, he does, and I've watched that a few times. And if we ever get our simulator straightened out, I'm going to give that a shot. Here's Shannon. I was in sales for some time before I started driving. I started as a Schwann salesperson driver. No kidding. Well, that's kind of cool. And did you enjoy that? I was never a big... I don't know if I could have done sales. I didn't really care if people bought stuff or not. I don't know how well I would have done. But, interesting. Interesting. Thanks for that, Shannon.
Captain Nice Guy coming in with the 20 beans. Thank you very much for that, my friend. I have a degree in education. That job market didn't work out so well, but if I didn't have my CDL, I would still be in the classroom. Having the degree helps for the little bit of training I've had to do, though. Yeah, I could definitely imagine that it would help get you through that. Thank you very much for the 20. It's a shame that you need a degree in education to only help you with the little bit of training that you get. Like, you would think you get more bang for your buck, considering how much you would spend on something like that, but...
Is that 20 beans or is that a bomb?
It's whatever I'm feeling when I read it off. But yes, thank you very much for the $20 donation.
Andrew Howe says, "Before I get rolling and can't type, I always enjoyed restoring the old trucks. That's ideally what I'd like to do if there was good money in it without a ton of collateral." And oh man, there's a couple guys in Pennsylvania doing that, and I'm struggling to think of the name of the guy that redoes the old Model A's out there right now. But and there's the Spencers, of course, but by God, they can make some beautiful trucks when they're working away at them. And I know Spencer sold a few of his for some pretty good money. I think there is good money in restoring old trucks if you're restoring the type like a W900A that was sell. So yeah, I think there's huge money in it. Zach McNeil is gone. Captain Nice Guy, beans and bombs, and y'all didn't want to talk about tackles again this week. Hopefully, Captain Nice Guy, we won't get into that. Is there any way I can get the other one back? Dennis Cochran says, "I'm about to retire." Well, there's an enviable position, Dennis. So you can kind of hobby truck or not truck at all, or be a Walmart greeter. The world is yours. The world is your oyster, they used to say. So congratulations on your upcoming retirement. Here's Zach McNeil. One day at the golf club I was working at, I was the dishwasher, and I ended up talking to the GFS, Gordon Food Services driver, and he was telling me the average salary for a truck driver is $80,000 per year, and I was sold. Zach McNeil. That's interesting. And those guys that do the food delivery stuff like Gordon Food Services, I think they do make some pretty serious money. I don't think it's easy work because they do a lot of carting in and out. But yeah, there's good money in that. And most of those guys are home every night, like Cisco and Gordon Food Services. So not a bad way to go if you want like a local driving job that pays really well. Good choice. Paul Hudson says hi from Illinois, by the week. Hope everybody is okay after last week's stream. Took me a day or so to get over it. Laverne's here. Good afternoon, Laverne. Oh, Zach's in Brampton. Well, that explains why he knows about Gordon Foods. And Cisco's there, too. Cisco has a big depot in Brampton as well. Jason Duke says, "I can't think of being anything else other than a trucker." That's what he was trying to say. And you know what? I didn't really even have a backup career. I always wanted to be a truck driver. I had thought about law school, but I was flat broke. I was out of money. I love driving, so that was the. And I always thought, oh, maybe I'll go back to school someday. I never did. I enjoyed the driving too much.
The discipline.
Del Monte Green Beans coming in with the 5 beans. According to the title, I would have been a comedian. Thank you very much for the 5.
Del Monte Green Beans, well, I'm glad you could join us. We could always use a little levity here on this channel. So appreciate you joining us and appreciate the 5. Thank you, sir. JP says, have you ever thought about doing a live stream about saving money, saving tips on the road, to teaming up with another channel about budgeting? We did a video about saving money on the road, and it went over very well. Check that out. See if you can find that in our catalog. But and we do have plans, not with teaming up with another channel so much, but we're gonna interview a friend of ours here shortly. That's in our plans for the near future. Dennis says that he started after he retired from the Army. Dennis Cochran started driving after he retired from the Army. And it's interesting, I've met a lot of guys that came out of the Army or the Armed Forces and went into trucking. And it worked out really well for them because they already had a pension, and then they were trucking as well. Those guys made good money. Dave, if it wasn't an option for you, though, did you have any hobbies that you could have considered pursuing for professionally? Captain Nice Guy.
Read the next one now.
Professional donut eating. Kathy threw that in. No, that's not what I would have done. I like that, but I don't think I could have made a profession out of it. But I was interested in setting up boat engines. But up here where I live, there's that's like a 2-month season, and I tried to emigrate to Florida in my youth, but that didn't turn out. Turned out Canadians can't do that, but I had that thought for a little while. Professional food taster. They're on me here. I think they're trying to say that I should drop a few pounds. I think that's the underlying suggestion here.
Take from it what you will.
Roger Penske says, I wanted to join the Air Force and be the first man on Mars. I think the Air Force should be cool. I'm not sure I'd want to go to Mars, but I like your other choice better. Then he says, I blew my knee out, and that was the end of that. Because they don't want you, because you can't pass the physical because of your knee. Huh. Yeah,
Captain
true.
Nice Guy, I'll answer that for sure. No, I don't think he could have been, because it requires a certain level of what would the best word for that be? Self-control, and I don't know. I wouldn't call it people skills, but that would definitely tie in. I think a lot more people would end up
In the can.
or shot,
Yeah.
tased,
Tasered.
and that just can't be good for PR. So
Yeah.
so no, I don't think he would have made a very good police officer. No.
He'd take the law into his own hands. He'd have his own set of laws.
You know,
If he was like Clint Eastwood in the Wild West, then maybe,
would be
but
good.
unfortunately, it doesn't work like that.
yeah, you know they might be right about that, Captain Nice Guy. I think there might have been a few times that I'd have shot when I shouldn't have. So maybe it's best that I stayed out of that. Andrew House says, I can say I was one of the military straight into trucking. You know who's got a bunch of those guys? And they went into flatbedding, but I used to run into them all the time. Great Lakes Coal Logistics. Seeing more applicants coming from occupations once thought to be solid careers. Perceptions are changing. And isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? How many careers that we used to think of as being for life a solid career have disappeared through robotics or automation or something like that? That is a fact of life these days. Kelly Patterson says, I could have started in a spaghetti western. I'd have been there for the spaghetti. Thank you, Kelly. But no, Oh, Bumpy. I'm doing everything I can to get out of trucking after 17 years. I will even accept a security guard job at $17 an hour if it was offered me to get out. Bumpy. I'm Bumpy. I'm sorry to hear that. It's part of that will be because you're with a bad carrier. I don't know how else to say it more politically correctly, but because half the time, more than half the time, a large majority of the time, a good carrier can make it for you. Captain Nice Guy. And couldn't you just see Dave writing up maintenance ticket for his equipment in Taser? I wouldn't have been that bad a cop. Well, maybe not.
Tell them what your parents thought you should be.
What did I don't know what did they think Kathy says tell them what your parents thought you should be. What did they I don't even remember.
That's a good story. Well told.
And I guess we're not going to find out.
Well, they're your parents.
Roger Rose.
At least the donut eating kind of falls in line with that.
Roger Rose, are UPS drivers real truckers? Roger, you're asking for my personal opinion, and my opinion is if they drive one of those little brown vans and wear the little brown shorts, no. If they're just delivering local stuff, but there are UPS highway drivers because I've seen them. But so I guess technically those are truck drivers, but
King of Queens.
They are truck drivers. I think.
Truck drivers, yeah.
are they? Well, they consider themselves truck drivers, but if they just drive the little brown vans, that's not trucking in my book. But
Yeah, that goes faster than your car.
it does not. I found a very lucrative career within the film industry, moving the film sets around. Zach McNeil. And we had a buddy that did lighting for movie sets and stuff. And he went from being a mechanic to doing lighting for making movies, and he really enjoyed it. He was the best body man, professional body man I'd ever known, and he did hot rod cars, did a beautiful job of them, and was a mechanic, and then went on to do lighting for movie studios. Really enjoyed it.
So move now into what the benefits would have been at another career over top of truck driving.
There are a lot of careers probably that we could have gone into rather than trucking that would have taken less time out of our lives. Like you would have had a 40-hour work week and, maybe got to see your kids and your family more. There were some drawbacks to trucking. There are some drawbacks to trucking. And one of the huge drawbacks is the time it takes out of your week every week. So I think in a lot of cases, other careers would have meant that you would had more time, perhaps a pension plan, which is something a lot of truck drivers lack. There are some disadvantages to driving a truck. So I'm sure we all suffered from a few of those, like a lack of a pension plan and having to work so many hours for every week for so many years. That's been a hard part of trucking. So there are advantages to the other lifestyle. If as Cold Lakes Logistics pointed out, your job didn't disappear one day all of a sudden. That was the one nice thing about trucking is you knew you would always have a job. So, and a good job. Because there's so many opportunities in trucking, you can just keep hunting until you find one that you're happy with. Daniel Meredith. The most watched videos for Swift on YouTube are the accidents. Yeah, I've seen so many of those I've lost track. I was just suggesting that if they did YouTube videos out of their guys running out of fuel every day, maybe they could score a whole lot more hits. But it's not Swift's YouTube channel that's showing all the accidents they have. That's Bonehead Truckers. And I think he's probably making a fortune at that because they never quit having accidents. So he's probably got a pretty good gig there. Jason Duke says the hours are killing me. And that's one problem with trucking. Man, there is a lot of hours. And for some carriers, not all those hours are paid. Like a lot of the over-the-road guys don't get paid for sitting at loading docks and stuff like that, or resets on the road. That's an issue. There are a lot of hours.
How about how you pooped out with working too many hours?
That's finally what happened to me. I worked so much. I worked all the time. I was away from home all the time, and then just all of a sudden one day, I just knew I'd had enough. I just wasn't going to do it anymore. I was satisfied with the career that I had, and I'd seen North America by truck, but enough was enough, and I just knew when the time came that was good for me. I was done with that. Kelly Patterson, over-the-road truckers have a very high divorce rate. I know from personal experience. Yes, the divorce rate's high enough without being a truck driver. I can't imagine what the average divorce rate is for over-the-road truck drivers, but you just know it's got to be high. Brighton Brown, I would still be laying brick in Pennsylvania, destroying my body for $20 an hour. Layoffs in the winter really take its toll on your bank account. Yeah, there's an example of a tough career, and there are careers out there like bricklaying, for instance, that your body, you can do it when you're 20, but there's all sorts of them that you just can't do when you're 40 or 60 years old too, and that's something that trucking was good for. You could, with the right carrier, you could do it. I knew guys that drove up into their 70s. SoCal Sandman, I encountered the UPS truck drivers on the freeway. Man, do they hate to be passed, but no sympathy from SoCal. He passes them anyway, he says. Chromehound, I was going to be a firefighter, but wanted a safer job, so I chose trucking. Yeah, firefighting is a dangerous job. I think it pays pretty well, but there's no doubt there's a lot of danger involved. Although they rate truck driving too as one of the top 10 most dangerous professions these days. Gustavo says, had I lived right now in the USA, I definitely would have been getting my CDL. In the country where I live, wages are worthless and the equipment is trash on wheels. Gustavo said that, and I'm not sure what country he's coming from, but yeah, you see some other countries and the trucks are just junk. At least in North America, we have standards for the equipment and it's enforced. So they really can't get away with putting junk on the road. So generally in North America, we're driving pretty good equipment. And there's a plus to being here in North America, certainly. Scott Meyer says he'd have been driving tour buses and private coaches. And again, I think those guys have a decent living. I just wouldn't have wanted the responsibility and the liability of the passengers. The freight didn't bother me, but the people, I don't think I would have felt good doing that. Oscar says, so I left the roofing industry to go into trucking, but now I wonder if I did the right thing. Roofing is real hard on the body, but trucking, you give up your health. Oscar, we had a guy here locally that fell off the roof, slid off the roof basically, and broke his back. And every time I think about guys doing roofing, I think about what a dangerous job that is. And some of the roofs, our roof is steep as hell because of the snow load we get up here. But we still have to put on new shingles every once in a while. That wouldn't be a job that I would be comfortable with anyway. It only takes one slip. Daniel Meredith, as soon as you get out of high school, try to look for a job that's better than going to college with a big debt. Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up, Daniel. It's going to college isn't what it used to be. And it's the guys with the college degrees now that are having trouble finding jobs. And you'll wonder if the time and the money that you spend these days going to college is worth it, if there's going to be a return on that investment. And there are some blue collar jobs out there that pay better than most college degree graduates ever attain. So I personally, Kathy and I have talked about it, and we don't think the money's worth it anymore to go to college. It was at one time in the 60s. I don't think that's the case anymore. Midnight Hauler, USAF's combat vet, says he would have been a state trooper. I think I think that would have been a challenging and interesting job. Certainly a dangerous job. I don't know what kind of money state troopers make. That would have been something, they say, we were joking about being a policeman here, but that's a different level than a state trooper. But I think that would have been interesting work, but certainly dangerous work. KS says, I was born to be a truck driver, nothing else. That's from KS. And I kind of hate to admit it, but I think I'm the same. KS, I was born to be a truck driver, for better or for worse. And I've enjoyed it, so I've got no complaints.
Better for worse. I thought those were the marriage vows.
No, for better or for worse. Man.
To the death do you two part.
Sandus Turner. If I hadn't become a truck driver, I'd still be pulling up ship lines at the dock, breaking my back 2 to 3 times a day and coming home to my parents. Sad. That sounds like it was tough work. Yeah, those ship lines are huge, some of those damn things. It's incredible. You wonder why they still do that by hand. You think they could have come up with something else. So, yeah, there's a job your buddy couldn't stand forever. Ronald, I'd probably be driving railroaders to and from their train still. Crail Ruex out of Morel, Nebraska rail yard. $10 an hour, 12 hours a day, 4 days a week, and always asking for more hours. Ronald, that sounds like a tough way to make a living. I bet you're glad you got into trucking.
Yeah.
Kelly Patterson says there are no pros or cons no matter what career you choose. There are pros and cons no matter what career you choose, and that is absolutely true. That is absolutely true. Jason Duke says, my only regret is that I got into trucking late in life, wasted my youth in retail. Well, I guess that's for you to judge, Jason. I don't think I would have liked retail, but certainly you were home all the time. Maybe that wasn't a good thing, but I hear what you're saying. Scott Meyer says, I went to a great Ivy League school, but ended up working with my father at his job. Huh. Those Ivy League schools aren't cheap. Thunderstorm 87, what are your thoughts on that truck driver that got charged for those 4 deaths in Colorado? Is that the one that are you talking about that ran down the hill and into the traffic a couple of years ago? That was a sad case, but it was completely preventable, if that's the one you're referring to. And it's that guy should have been driving a truck in the first place. He was obviously virtually untrained. I think it's tragic that his lack of training killed those people. It's hard to know what a good just sentence would be for a guy like that. He clearly didn't do it on purpose, yet it was a complete tragedy. I don't even know what justice would have been in a case like that. I think the people that put him in the truck should certainly do a lot of jail time. Certainly this guy's got to do some jail time, but I think the people that put him in the truck in the first place should do jail time as well. Grilled Mortal is here. I'm still waiting for the trucker pension to kick in. Guess I should have been a teacher. I did apply to the police department years ago. Grilled Mortal, I'm still waiting for the pension, the trucker pension to kick in. Hasn't happened yet for me either, so. Your videos are what first piqued my interest in the trucking industry. This is from Brighton Brown. I'm doing great now with my first company. My family wouldn't be where we are without you. Thanks for all you do. Thank you so much, Brighton. I appreciate that. Thank you. I view trucking in a positive light because it was a good choice for me, and there's so much good about it. And I'm glad to hear people like Brighton say, hey, it's been a good deal for me too. So thank you for saying so, Brighton. Appreciate that. And it's something we all appreciate because we've chosen this path, and it's nice to know that it works out for a lot of people. Shannon says, Dave's exactly right. The people that put him in the truck should be hung out to dry. Yeah, Shannon, that's excuse me, that's how I see it too. And we had a case like that up here called the Humboldt accident a few years ago, and he's doing 8 years in prison. And I saw an interview with him the other day, but they didn't do it on purpose, but he shouldn't have been driving the truck in the first place. So it's the people that put him in the truck, I think, should pay part of the price. Jason Duke says, I'm going to college to be a maritime engineering. That's a cool choice. Yeah, SoCal says he should have taken the runaway ramp. Yes, and they've got footage of him passing the runaway ramp. He had an easy shot. He could have gone up it. God knows why he didn't. Probably thought he could drive his way out of it, which was a seriously bad decision. Captain Skinny, that guy drove by several traps and also could not read some of the signs because he couldn't read English. Yeah, that was just a tragedy all the way around. But so many reasons that guy shouldn't have been behind the wheel. So tell me, you guys, what have some of the good things about choosing a trucking career been for you? Like Brighton just said there, it's been good for him and his family, and it's been true, I think, for an awful lot of people, because you don't know whether your job would have lasted the 40 years or whatever you wanted to work out. There have been some good things about trucking for a career, a lot of good things, in fact, for me. For me, it was like a paid vacation. I got to see the country. I love scenery. So I got to see the country and I got paid for it. I got to drive really nice equipment, but that's partially because I bought it and I paid for it. So I got to buy what I like, but I spent an awful lot of time in it. So my thinking was that if you're going to live in it, you've got to like it. SoCal says that must have been about reading and writing English. I got pulled over in Iowa one time. And that was one of the questions they were asking drivers coming in. They were pulling everybody in with Ontario plates, and because Ontario has a lot of immigrants, so every Ontario plate, Iowa was pulling them in, and they were checking everybody's English. And in Iowa, if you don't have a command of the English language, if you don't speak English, they just pulled those guys right out of the trucks. That was the end of it. They parked the trucks, no more, because that was a law in Iowa, and I thought that was a good law. Kelly Patterson says, it's interesting some people consider truckers uneducated, low skill, but in this stream we have college educated people in sciences, law, and education. And that's right, Kelly, and that's not necessarily a fair assessment of truck drivers. Now, I think that's part of why I get so annoyed sometimes, is because it's just not true. It's just not a fact of life. There are an awful lot of truck drivers out there with college degrees or life experience that, above average IQs, that they chose this for a living. It wasn't because they had to do it for a living. They weren't forced in it. It was their career choice. And there's some very bright people in the trucking industry. It's sad they're
Behind the wheel.
not more recognized. Yes, behind the wheel is what I'm trying to say, truck drivers. But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Craig Miller, I would probably still be in a factory if I wasn't trucking. But I've been around trucking my entire life. My mom and dad drove, so I think I was born to truck. It's been good for me and my family. Craig Miller. Yep. And that's the story for an awful lot of families. And geez, I tried when I was a teenager, I tried one summer working in a factory, and God, Kathy, what did I last? 2 days? I think I quit my second day. I couldn't do it. I went to college for a few years, Kelly, but didn't finish. I was majoring in accounting. Talk about biting. But SoCal, that would give you the, enough background and enough base information that you could certainly manage an awful lot of your own business skills. So, Captain Nice Guy, Dave gets annoyed and that gets Cat annoyed together. They're paranoid. I'm not even going to fall into that trap. Shannon talking about that guy in Colorado. The company had numerous brake violations. Well, you can certainly believe that. No, they shouldn't even have been out there. Icy Profits, been trucking for 2 years, just a few months away from paying my house off. Huh. Yeah, if you're with the right carrier, there is still good money in it. It's a lot of it's about being with the right people at the right time in the market. But Thunderstorm 87, truck driving was my childhood dream. It's been great to me. Good to hear. Another good thought. Kelly Patterson, I've got to see more places and meet more people across the planet. Yeah, it's great for that. It's great for that. You can be with trucking. You can be alone when you want. You can be socializing with people when you want. It's kind of your choice. Dave, there used to be a bond between drivers, and that bond seems to be almost non-existent anymore. Drivers used to be, this is from Shannon, drivers used to watch over one another. Shannon's right about that, and I don't understand why that dynamic has changed. It's not all the same group or type of guy coming into trucking, drivers that used to be in trucking. Like a lot of the older guys have left, and a lot of the younger crowd is less focused on driving for a career and just doing it to pass time or something like that. But it's not the same crowd that it used to be, and I bemoan that loss. I do. But happily, there's still an awful lot of guys out there that still have a bond. There's still a certain level of camaraderie in the industry, thank God. And I hope that never disappears. I think that's part of what we all have here, and when we get together on the stream, we share that type of camaraderie, and that's part of why I like the stream so much. I remember the first time I brought my truck home, and my mom said she had no surprise because she knew I was going to get it into truck driving since I was 4 years old. I'd prefer to be truck driver than president. That's from KS. Boy, these days, I don't think I'd want to be president either. Truck driver, absolutely. I don't think anyone probably wants to be president the way they're picking at those guys these days. A hell of an ugly job. James Cheeks, everyone for themselves now. yeah. There's kind of that. You know what I noticed too, and I even caught myself doing it the one time when I went near the end of my career. I ended up with an electronic log, and you were so busy watching the damn log so you didn't run out of hours that you would fail to take the time and socialize with the driver at the fuel bar or at lunch or something like that, because you're always watching the damn clock. And I think the ELDs really contributed to taking some of that camaraderie away. Backwoods says, bring the passion and working back as a team. Yeah, because we did. And when somebody broke down on the road, we carved over and helped them. A lot of times the guys would have spare parts. I remember somebody giving me a fuel solenoid for an old cat out in Nebraska a number of years ago. I didn't have one. I could have spent the afternoon sawing this fuel solenoid rod off, but another guy come along. He just swapped me pumps, and I was on my way. Just stuff like that, and it was just everybody helped everybody, and it was nice. You'd help a guy chain up or give him a pull out of the ditch or something. Camerval, I'm 20, just bought my first truck, 1988 Pete 362 cab over. Been running freight for my resale business with my pickup truck and gooseneck since I was 17. Elated to get into a big truck. And Cam, what a nice truck you bought. That's a classic, an 88 Pete 362 cab over. The 362s are the ones with the 3 windshield wipers, I think, and the big windshield. They modified the cab over, the 352 cab over, to house bigger engines. They were a beautiful truck. Ken says the decline in camaraderie is partly due to the company itself rushing you to make your next appointments, and he's right. He's right. Some of that blame has got to fall on the carrier as well, because they're always, it's the sales team now that's made promises to the customer, and then he's shoving the dispatcher to get you there on time. And everybody's paid by the mile, so everybody runs. Shannon says, I don't miss chaining up and driving on the old stagecoach roads on drop-offs. No, Shannon, I don't miss chaining up. Most of the chaining up I did was in the Canadian Rockies. I've done some, on Cabbage and through Truckee and stuff. But most of the chaining I had to do was throwing triples in British Columbia, and that is cold, ugly, wet work. And I don't miss chaining up at all. I certainly know how to do it backwards and forwards, but I don't miss it. But interesting point about everyone's in a rush now, and the freights, this supply chain business, this collapse of the supply chain, so much of this has been because of just-in-time freight. And when just-in-time freight, that concept came out, and it was years ago now. It was the automotive industry that basically introduced just-in-time freight because they didn't want to have to warehouse parts and stuff. And I remember thinking at the time, I'm never going to do something like that because that's stupid to let your schedule control how quickly you drive and the decisions you make. And it's, and now it's nice to see that just-in-time freight concept just fall apart. Dennis says, good afternoon, Dave. Managed to catch a live stream before I had to pick up my kids from school. I was a truck driver for over 20 years. I left the industry to take care of my severely autistic son. Family's got to come first. That's Dennis has done that. Dennis has put his family ahead of his trucking career, and certainly that is the wise decision. There's just no arguing that. Family comes first. Good for you, Dennis. Craig Miller, a lot of drivers out here don't run CB radios and don't flash low beams to let you know you're clear of them to move back over. Craig, there's a lot of guys that there are a lot of drivers. Kathy keeps correcting me. I keep saying guys, but there are a lot of drivers that just aren't even aware of half of what trucking is about these days. Like the common courtesy of flashing their high beams or the importance of running a CB radio so you know that there's a wreck around the next corner. And it escapes me why this is the way it is now, but I think some of the new drivers just don't care to be particularly really good at their job. And I think that's the difference. Some guys aspire to be the best drivers they can be, and some guys these days just don't seem to care. And it's a personality type, as Kathy says, and maybe that's always been true, but certainly none of my friends or I were ever like that. We always wanted to be the best we could be. Sean says, I love being a truck driver. I don't imagine myself doing anything else. Well, at least, Sean, in trucking, you'll always have a job. Unlike, as Cold Lakes Logistics pointed out, some jobs just aren't even around anymore. Cam Revel says, what's your opinion on the self-driving trucks? I think it's a dangerous concept. I don't think you'll see it come into fruition in our lifetime.
It's a good time to announce your video.
And we're doing a video on that this Friday. In fact, it's about self-driving trucks. So stay tuned for that. I do not support that concept, and I've done a video on that'll be up Friday morning. So stay tuned for that. Good question, Cam. Is $29.50 an hour good for touch freight with only 6 months experience? King Cal, yes it is. Yes it is. Ken says that's the difference between a job and a career. That's right, Ken. Yeah, some guys don't aspire to make it their career, but some guys just a job and they're looking for something else. And maybe those are the guys that don't have the CBs and don't flash their lights. Yeah. Grilled Mortal says, I don't feel safe in a truck with no CB. Always ran one. Me too. Always had one. In the last few years, I'd run with it down low, especially if you got into the big cities because there was so much crap talk and CB Rambo. But I always ran one. SoCal says, I've always tried to be the very best driver I can be. Even after 27 years, I still learn a few new things all the time. Talking to old timers and subscribing to this channel helps me out with a lot of that. Thank you, SoCal. And that was true of me too. All the years I drove, I still was picking up stuff from guys in truck stops that I didn't know, or it hadn't occurred to me, or somebody would have a different technique or a new way of doing things, or you always learn stuff. And if you're paying attention, there's stuff to be learned, but some guys don't even pay attention, and that's the waste. But you're right. There's always stuff going on. There's always somebody you can pick up a pointer or two from.
Adam Bennett coming in with the 50 bomb. Thank you very much for that. Really appreciate that. Got a load headed towards Iowa. Are you familiar with that load board?
I'm familiar with the concept, Adam. Thank you for the 50. They had something similar. It wasn't called a DAT load board, but they had load boards coming up when I was still driving. And the problem with the load boards, I don't know if DAT is any better than the boards used to be, but the problem was everybody and his dog could be a load broker on one of those boards, and the problem was getting paid. And there were all sorts of fly-by-night guys on these load boards, and they just had a big case here in California this year about a few brothers that were running a couple of different load broker operations on load boards, and they didn't have an office. They weren't paying anybody. They were just raking in the cash, and they raked in hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars before they got caught. And those trucking companies or drivers never did get paid the money they were owed. So it's still obviously a scam. You've got to be careful. I'm sure, in some instances the load boards are a good thing to have to fill up those empty miles if you're stuck. But you've got to be very careful on who you're dealing with those things. Captain Nice Guy. I support the electric truck initiative. We're not there yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing the advancements we make over the years. Autonomous, though, absolutely never ever. I'm with Captain Nice Guy. I think you'll see a time when electric trucks are a common and serious reality in the trucking industry, and I think that's a good thing. And I think electric trucks right now, while they don't necessarily have the range to do over-the-road work, they'll be good for these fleets that just, do regional stuff or local delivery stuff. And I think it's a good idea, frankly. I think it'll happen. I think it's a good thing. I don't think there's anything to be afraid of with those, because they've still got a driver in the cab. Autonomous trucks, that concept scares the hell out of me. Chromehound. Hey Dave, I've been driving for 6 years now and listening to your videos and watching every stream upload the whole time. Thanks for what you do. I've benefited greatly. Chromehound, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. We enjoy this stream as much as anybody, because I love chatting with other truck drivers. Now that I'm retired, I don't get to do that except on these streams, and I really like it. It's nice to get together and chew the fat. Rolling Red says, smash that like button. 10-4. Craig Miller says, I also own my truck, a 14 Pete 389. Love what I do. I have lots of pride in driving, and my CB is always on. If you're kind of a motorhead kind of a guy, and I was like that, and I still am. It's nice to have a nice piece of equipment that you can have pride in and take care of, and that passed an awful lot of downtime for me was working on my trucks and taking care of my trucks, and I took pride in those things, and I enjoyed driving them. I still do. Yeah, SoCal says the DAT load board has been around for many years now. We didn't used to call them that. I remember sitting in the.
They're low board.
Yeah.
Same principle.
Yeah, I remember sitting in the 76 in Ontario, California, and seeing one of those for the first time. And that was years and years ago. Grilled Mortal. Years ago, I had an old timer show me how to thaw out frozen brake drums. Took a few issues of truck news stuffed in the wheel and a lighter. Freaks people out. Grilled Mortal, that is the best use you could have found for truck news. Frankly, that was just no wonder it was free. Jeff Rees, same here, SoCal. I have learned new things from younger drivers. Yep, because some of these younger drivers are like third generation truck drivers, and they've learned tricks from their grandfathers. So there's stuff always to be learned. SoCal, quick announcement. I'm having surgery this Tuesday. I have carpal tunnel and cubital tunnel in both arms and hands. The second surgery will be December 7th, so I'll be off the road for a while.
Well, we need to hire him for live stream.
Yeah, SoCal, yeah, that's a great idea. Kathy says we'll hire you to help us with the live stream. God knows we need help, but I need help, so I could use another truck driver hand here. I don't know. Is that pretty serious? That sounds like pretty serious surgery to me. That sounds like pretty serious surgery, and I certainly hope it goes well. I'm sure it will, but you'll have some time off, so come join us in the live stream. You can help me out. I need all the support and help I can get, especially if you can run a computer. I could use a hand with that stuff. So good luck with the surgery. I'm glad you'll let us know that was coming up. But is that sounds pretty serious? Is that as serious as it sounds? Fred Besmer says, when is the DOT going to enforce reading and speaking English? You know, Fred, I don't need to tell you this, but Canada's going the other direction. Apparently up here now you can try your Class 1 tractor trailer license in 20 different languages or some damn thing like that. I read that not too long ago. The politicians up here are just spaced. At least in the states they have the right idea, and in a lot of states it is mandatory. And Iowa, I know for one, does enforce that. So just common sense. SoCal says his hands and fingers get numb, and but it's a fairly simple procedure, so that's good to hear. Is it? That's good to hear. I'm glad of that.
Pin, and then wrap it up.
James Cheek says an old timer showed me how to ungel fuel tanks with road flares. Always a good tip to know, especially with the fuel going the way it does these days. God, that new low sulfur stuff gels up quick. David Ellison says, I wish I'd followed my father's advice and joined UPS when I was 21. I'd be retiring with a pension now. Yeah, there are a few outfits that I think I should have joined that had I gotten through with it, I would have had a pension by now. So yeah, I have a few regrets in that regard. But we didn't have UPS and FedEx up here back then. So, well, it's that time again. Time we started wrapping up here. Just to summarize, SoCal is going in for a little bit of surgery. What else have we got going on? But for the most part, we've determined that the majority of you are happy and content with the choice you made to drive a truck, and I'm glad to hear that. Certainly, I have no regrets on having done that, other than the fact that I was away from home far too much. John M says, Dave SoCal, Lettuce King Trucking answers. Not that what. No, that would be a great group podcast. That's a good idea. Get SoCal and the Lettuce King in here with us and do a podcast. That would be entertaining. I bet you SoCal's never experienced anything like the Lettuce King. I don't think most people have ever experienced anything like the Lettuce King. But road flares. John says road flares. How many still carry them? I don't even know. That used to be mandatory to carry them. I don't even think you need to carry those anymore. I think you just need to have reflective triangles or something now. But yeah, a lot of guys wouldn't even carry those anymore. Well, just food for thought here, and the way that before we wrap up, and the way trucking's going, it's going to be fast food, because my friends that are still trucking tell me you can't even hardly get restaurant meals out there anymore. It's all fast food. But no matter how much the politicians and the ATA and the mega carriers try to screw up our industry, what keeps trucking great is its people, its drivers. And it's nice that we can all as drivers get together on these streams and podcasts and stuff like that and still socialize, because we're truly the backbone of the industry, and one of the best things about the trucking industry is its people, is its drivers. So always bear that in mind. Stay safe. Keep the rubber side down. Love chatting with you again today. Take care, and we'll see you all soon. Good night, everybody.